The opinion poll is only the first in a series of special election products as we step up our coverage of this year's election. And I'm joined by Angela Ambido, who is the founder and CEO of InfoTrack. Glad to have you here in studio. So only 6 days ago, poll results released by TIFA, where the presidential election is concerned, showed that Ruto was leading at 39%. Raila Odinga came in second at 32%. What explains that discrepancy? Is it to be expected?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, polling by far and large depends on the universe that you sample. In our case, we only sampled people who indicated that they are, one, registered voters, and two, that they will be voting in the next general election. If any other poll is using a different universe, then it would be expected that sometimes the results would be different. If a poll perhaps is just looking at adult Kenyans, then perhaps you may find that those numbers may be different. But I think what you see is a trend in our poll, and I can only speak for ours, and the trend is such that there has been a dead heat since December. It's not changed much. So none of the candidates right now is leading or has an edge against the other. The person that is going to be able to endear themselves to the undecided voter, who you mentioned earlier, is the one who will take the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you see, it hasn't changed much since December of last year, but there is that demographic, the undecided, I think, let me call it, we use the term constituency, that constituency of the undecided. It was at 24%, I believe, in November of last year, moved to 22% in December, 21% in March, and now it's at 10%. What explains that?
Well, I think both of these candidates, they were aspirants when we did the last polls because they had not really been endorsed by their parties and their alliances. We saw things starting to consolidate in December. Now we know that we have two, formidable candidates. That is Ruto on one hand for Kenya Kwanza and Raila for Azimio. And indeed, as time goes by, you do know that obviously when we go to the ballot, box, we will have to make a decision. So obviously, as time goes by, the electorate is becoming clearer and clearer on what decisions they need to make in terms of which candidate they're going to go with. Yeah. So that I think is why you now see that the undecided is lower, and we will start seeing it even decreasing as we get into knowing who the running mates are and the campaigns hot up.
Okay, so from 24 to 21 to 22, now to 10. Do you have any indication of, I think Leila Mohammed looked at some of the issues at the core of this election, at the heart of everything. Unemployment, I think, was at the top of the list, and development as well. Yeah.
So most elections are, at least in this country, are a referendum against something. I think this time the referendum would be against runaway cost of living and what is felt to be bad governance, which has led to some of the hardships Kenyans are facing. Of course, that is linked to unemployment. It is linked to the cost of doing business. And whilst we know that we are, just coming out of a pandemic, it cannot be excused that, governance, perhaps if it was done better, would have resulted in us or Kenyans feeling, slightly, more comfortable with the way things are going. So those things would be the key issues. The high cost of living is a #1 issue, but the other things, infrastructure and development is a key issue. And then we also have access to simple things, which by now perhaps a country like Kenya shouldn't be talking about. Even in Nairobi, access to clean water is a core issue, and is something that, the electorate wants us to deal with. So those are things that will become the mantra in terms of the manifestos and the campaign agendas that each party will have. One group will call it bottom-up, another one will call it pesa mfukoni, but in essence, both of them understand that economy and having access to, income for the electorate is something that is critical.
All right. Yeah. And finally, before I let you go, Raila Odinga, from, I believe it was 25% in November last year. Now he's neck to neck with William Ruto at 42%. Right. He's gone up by 17%. Yeah. What explains that?
Well, we didn't know he was really vying. There was a lot of pussyfooting last year. And so, you know, the electorate wasn't sure whether he was going to be the main candidate for which alliance. So things hadn't really solidified. I think we started seeing things changing when, one, he was, you know, ratified by ODM, and then secondly, he was ratified by Azimio. Okay. That is indeed when those numbers went up, because then the electorate were clear that now the candidate for their perhaps preferred alliance and preferred party was going to be Raila, and therefore they felt comfortable enough to say that they would vote for him.
Okay. Yeah. And tomorrow we look forward to the findings as far as running mates is concerned.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening,
Anna.
Angela Ambido, founder and CEO InfoTrack Research.